7 of the world's top economic minds think a global recession is coming, while some say it's already here. Central banks have been aggressively raising interest rates in their bid to cool sky-high inflation. While these policies are intended to reduce the risk of a recession, they also heighten the chances for a downturn. With the labor market performance in America still strong despite a downward trend in job openings, business leaders are bracing for problems to come. Tech giants like Meta and Google have warned of or announced upcoming hiring freezes that could also impact American jobs. Before starting the video, make sure you subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon. While the recession debate goes back and forth, 90% of CEOs in the United States says they are now convinced a downturn is coming. Let's get into the topic, but make sure you hit the like button. So, the U.S. has already experienced 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth in 2022. Some people consider this to be a recession. As with financial indicators, there are times when it's better to wait for the National Bureau of Economic Research's judgment to make the final call. That hasn't stopped the world's sharpest economic minds from publicly declaring that the U.S. and global economy are officially in or near a recession. Here are some of the most prominent views on the topic from experts in various fields of economics. Number 1. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. Dimon warned investors back in May about impending economic turbulence and market volatility, that the invading Russia was going to continue, as well as the Fed pursuing tougher monetary policy. He said that the storm clouds had turned into a hurricane. 6 months ago, the banking boss found himself unshaken by the U.S. economy. However, he did take a sober note on a call with a client in September and said that while things are generally going relatively well, he has a 10% chance of an economic slowdown that doesn't lead to a recession. What's left of the outcome could amount to maybe something worse. Inflation is a terrible thing. You can't cure it, warned Carl Icahn, chairman of Icahn Enterprises. Number 2. Carl Icahn is the chairman of Icahn Enterprises. Some believe that the worst of this bear market is yet to come, and billionaire investor Carl Icahn is sharing his view. The investor stated at the Best New Ideas in Money Festival last month that the worst of this bear market is yet to come. Icahn Enterprises billionaire chairman warned investors of impending difficulties for the U.S. economy back in 2005. During the press conference, Icahn compared the problems with rising inflation in 2022 to the fall of the Roman Empire more than 1,000 years earlier. Inflation is a terrible thing because you can't cure it, Icahn said. Number 3. Ken Griffin, Citadel CEO. Ken Griffin, a notable hedge fund manager, thinks that we will experience a recession. Federal Reserve officials should continue their efforts to cool the economy. Capital says that investors and economists have scorned them for their hawkish attempts to fight inflation. But they say deflation is worse than inflation. It's just a question of when, and frankly, how hard, said the CNBC Delivering Alpha Investor Summit. With the psychological component to inflation, Griffin argued, the Fed should continue its work on keeping more Americans out of debt by lowering consumer prices and re-anchoring inflation expectations. It could lead many Americans to believe the American dream is over. The impacts of unemployment are beyond what you may realize. When someone has to get out of a career, they often lose invaluable skills and experience. They also lose self-belief and the society's belief in their dreams. Unemployed people can be significantly more vulnerable to further setbacks. Number 4. Economist Nouriel Roubini. He believes that this crisis will not only hurt the U.S., but the world as a whole, potentially even lasting into 2024. In September, Nouriel Roubini said that it's not going to be a short and shallow recession, it's going to be severe, long, and ugly. Once referred to as Dr. Doom for his often bleak economic predictions, the New York University professor and CEO at Roubini Macro Associates earned himself recognition in the finance field, as he described the economy is experiencing a real hard landing. It's important to be prepared when it comes to investing in these uncertain economic times. Many zombie institutions, Roubini said, Zombie households, corporates, banks, shadow banks, and zombie countries going to die will be lucky enough to meet the same fate, he continued. So which institution or person is left naked? Number 5. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. She says millions of people will feel like a recession, so be prepared. She is an executive director at the IMF. Most of the time, a downturn in the economy is technically avoided even if it feels like one is imminent. Georgieva believes the interest rates will increase, making it more difficult for businesses and companies to stay afloat. Obviously, for the vast majority of people in the world today, it will feel like recession, Georgieva said. But even with hyperinflation, if we can get inflation under control, we may be able to see a foundation for growth and recovery. She added that inflation has become persistent, not just temporary. Number 6. David Malpass. With the rising risks facing the global economy and a slowdown forecast for growth, an unusual perfect storm could result in a global recession, warned World Bank President David Malpass, a former United States Treasury official. In the rewritten sentence, David Malpass is World Bank president, rather than the other way around. A growing number of global institutions are warning governments of an impending global recession and calling on wealthy nations to consider how their efforts to reduce inflation within their borders are impacting the wider global economy. As a global recession looms, David Malpass, the president of the World Bank, warns that there are factors set to change in a perfect storm that could make it worse. A tough reality confronts the global economy, said Malpass at the conference. Unprecedented global macroeconomic policies are threatening to throw development into crisis. The consequences of these financial disruptions on a global level will have implications for all of us, but particularly for those involved in international trade. This could bring an extremely challenging near-term outlook, especially for developing economies. Number 7. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Today, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres appointed Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the new Financial and Economic Affairs Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO. He also predicted a global recession. With the global economy growing at a slow pace, it seems that we're headed towards a recession. WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala told Bloomberg last week that the indicators are not looking good. Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine has had a complex impact on economies, worsening the effects of rising food and energy prices worldwide. In April, the WTO lowered its expectations for merchandise trade growth this year from its previous projection of 4.7%. It also expects to slash its trade growth projections by 2022. For more video like these, keep watching our channel.